Welcome to episode 143 of the Fully In It podcast. Have you noticed that there is a massive need that is not always being met among our children, ourselves, our clients, our spouses, our friends, and our communities? This is the need to feel fully seen. People are more lonely than ever. They're feeling misunderstood despite how connected we seem to be with technology. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about why this matters so much and the specific role that you play in all of it. We moms and business owners have an impact to make, and you're going to understand this more deeply as we dig in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. So I had a whole other episode planned out, and that one is going to run next week. But I was sitting in church last night because it's Easter weekend, so we had our Good Friday service, and I promise I was paying attention. However, something just clicked in my mind, and I had this thought around this need that every human has, which is this need to feel seen. And this was really supported by the fact that I had a client join one-to-one recently, and she and I have coached off and on for several years. And truly, her top goal with coming into this coaching space was just to feel seen and understood as she works through some things in her life. I also had 2 expand members this week say how much they love Expand membership because it's a space where they can be real. They can share what is actually on their heart and who they truly are without fear of judgment. Expand is a safe place for them to be truly seen. And I 100% designed it that way based on everything that we're going to talk about in this episode. Now, you may be wondering, why am I mentioning these things? And here's why. Because if I am seeing it through the work that I do and as a mom and just as a friend to so many people in my community, this means it's happening in your communities and perhaps even within yourself. Now, I'm just going to give a little caveat with this episode. I'm going to be talking about some serious things. So if you have little kiddos around or even older kiddos, this is totally your discretion. However, I recommend maybe pop some earbuds in and just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and really dig in here. Our men, I'm going to start with the men. You may be surprised that this is my starting point, but here we go. Men today are more lonely than ever. They feel unheard because there isn't space for them to share what they are truly experiencing. And a lot of this has to do with conditioning and the way that they were raised and all the societal pressures on men. And men are they're getting a rough go of it right now on social media, and just conversations around the role of men are not very supportive to them. They carry such a heavy load, and they often lack the community that we women tend to surround ourselves with. Women are just more likely to go seek someone out to have a conversation, to share what's on their heart. Men aren't doing that. And you may not know this, but in the United States, men die by suicide 4 times more than women. And this fact surprised me the most. Nearly 70% of suicides annually come from white males. And on a more personal note, a friend shared with me probably about a month or two ago, she was so shocked because a father that she knew, I don't know, but a father that she knew had committed suicide, and he had 4 kiddos, and on the outside, his life looked perfect, right? He had the job and the home, and he seemed happy. And so my friend was just so shocked by this because it seemed unexpected, because we don't always know how to read the signs of when someone is troubled inside and they are hurting. And we need to just have that awareness that there isn't a certain type that we can point out and say, yes, this is the type of male that is going to commit suicide, or woman, or even child, because this is happening among our children as well. And just to state this, statistics that I'm sharing are from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, so not pulling these out of thin air. Now, on the note of our children, they too are feeling lonely. They're struggling with feeling disconnected because of technology. And those of us that are of a certain age, we didn't have to deal with this, right? We didn't grow up worrying that someone was taking pictures of us without our consent and sharing them with our entire school. We didn't think about what we look like on social media and do I need to use a filter to change my appearance so that I am more likable and accepted. This is a true problem that we are seeing. They're struggling with navigating friendship and feeling fully seen in those relationships. But this can happen even within the home, because as parents, we are more distracted than ever, and our kids can start to feel invisible. We already know that young motherhood is a time when women often especially feel unseen. This is one of the biggest identity shifts we go through as women in our life, and quite frankly, most of us are unprepared for this experience. Honestly, my early motherhood experience, it about leveled me. And I really suffered from postpartum depression, loneliness, feeling isolated, feeling unseen in friend groups, feeling like nobody understood me. And that was the number one reason why I started my podcast. And I began offering life coaching back in 2018. It was because I knew how alone and directionless I felt, and I didn't want others to feel those same feelings. Whether you are a brand new mom, you are about to become a mom, or you have been a mom for decades, can you relate to these feelings, right? You're not alone in them. So I'm mentioning quite a lot here, and I'm not going into every single group of people who are craving to be seen and supported. And this is mainly because it's a universal human need. We all long to be deeply known. We all are feeling more disconnected than ever. And so the question becomes, what can you do about it, right? Instead of us just throwing our hands up in the air and saying, yep, we're all feeling this way. We all feel lonely. We feel disconnected. We feel invisible. What if we said, you know what? I know I feel this way sometimes. Maybe I can create change in the world. Maybe I can help others because I don't want them to feel what I'm feeling. And as heart-centered women, intentional mothers, and leaders in our communities, it is time that we be purposeful in creating space for others to be seen. So I want to talk a little bit about the ways that we can do that. But first, this is what we have to start with. You've got to acknowledge your own need to feel seen if you haven't yet. It's time to get the support that you need, and there is no shame in it. I think that there are so many of us mamas who are just silently going about our tasks on a daily basis, trying to keep up with all the things, wondering, am I the only one who feels this way? You're not, and you're not alone in it. For me personally, because of that feeling, I hired life coaches all along the way. And I hired my first life coach back in 2018 before I started the podcast, before I started coaching, because I was like, I didn't know who to talk to about what I was experiencing. And I had done traditional therapy in the past, and it was helpful in some regards. But what I felt like was missing was I really wanted someone who, one, could hear me and see me and it be non-judgmental, but also had the tools to help me move forward and not stay in that place. I didn't want to keep feeling stuck. And so I know I've told this story on the podcast before, but especially if you're new here, it's always worth mentioning, is that I just happened to be on Instagram and there was a woman I was following and she mentioned that she was a life coach. And I was like, I don't even know what a life coach is, but it sounds like something I need. I was worried that it was like a scammy thing. Like, I just didn't know. I had no experience with it, but I messaged her because I was feeling so desperate. And there were just certain things like I didn't want to talk to my mom about. I didn't want to burden my best friends with. Like, I just didn't know where to go. And so I hired her, and it was the best decision of my life. Everything changed because of that one decision. And I continued hiring coaches along the way for the different things that I felt like I needed support on, that I needed to be seen in. There were certain times like it was just a call where I needed to unload what was on my heart. And I needed to have feedback and validation from someone else who was equipped to provide that for me. And this was really huge because I don't know if you're like me, but I always struggled with that belief that I should be able to figure this out on my own, or I shouldn't need help. And that's just a lie. It is okay to need help. It is okay if you don't have it all together, because nobody does. And this is why God gave us community. God gave us one another, is so that we can come alongside each other and support one another. So there's nothing wrong with getting help, but you have to meet your own need first so that you have the capacity to then meet the need for others, right? Like, if we're drowning, we've got to secure our own safety so that then we can help others. If you're on the airplane, right? The proverbial airplane, you're supposed to put on your mask first. There's a reason for this. So we take care of our own needs so that then we can help others, because I truly believe that's what we're here on earth for, is to be a light to others. And this also happens within your own home. So really getting to know the ways your child or your children need to feel seen, and it's going to be unique for each one of them, because they are unique human beings who were all created differently. So you need to ask what needs of theirs are going unfulfilled. And I'm not talking about needs like, they need a new Nintendo Switch. I don't know. I don't really know video games. Is that a thing? My brain said PlayStation. That's like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? This shows how disconnected I am. It's not that they need a new phone. It's not that they need the latest Stanley. Goodness gracious. Every girl around here has those, right? It's that there is something inside of them that feels unheard. There is an emotional need that may not be getting fulfilled. And you won't know this unless you slow down, you listen to them, you ask the right questions, but you most importantly have to create the space where they feel like they can be honest with you without judgment, criticism, yelling, anything like that. You need to be able to neutrally listen to your child. And believe me, this comes up with my own children, where I am humbled again and again in how I thought I was meeting needs, and I realize I'm not. So I have to keep asking for forgiveness, truly, and trying again, and being willing to try again, because ego gets in the way, and it's like, why do we have to do this over and over again? We have to. We're parents. This is what we're called to do. It's not glamorous work, but it's the most meaningful work. Okay. So how can you create a sense of safety in your home so that your kids also don't go out looking for validation in the wrong places? This is huge. As your kids get older, they're going to naturally start orienting to their peer groups. And we don't want their peers parenting them. We don't want their peers to become their main place of safety and acceptance. It should be the home. And a really good book to read on this topic is Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Their Peers by Gordon Newfield. Highly recommend you read this if this conversation is speaking to you right now. Now, if you're married, what does your spouse need to feel seen? Now, this may be obvious, but you need to actually ask and not just have assumptions around what you think it is. You need to have an open conversation, and then you need to follow through on it so that they trust that when they share something with you, that it's going to actually be listened to, and that their being vulnerable with you was worth it, right? Because even within our own relationships, we can struggle with being vulnerable and saying what is really on our heart. And you may need to model this in your marriage or your relationship, but you also need to create the space for your spouse to be able to do the same and not worry about repercussions. Are you going to freak out? Are you going to flip out? Can you handle what they are going to say? With my husband, Kirk, there were certain ways that he has been feeling unseen in the past, right? We've worked through quite a bit of this, but he has told me that in the past, he didn't want to share things with me because he was worried it would add to my emotional load. And he would say, Kate, I just see you're struggling so much with the kids and the home and, X, Y, and Z. I don't want to burden you with more. And so our men tend to bottle up what they're experiencing. And this, again, has to do with them being conditioned as children and teenagers that they need to be silent and strong, that men shouldn't be weak. They shouldn't share their struggles and their challenges. And so as their partners in life, we need to create the space for them to open up. And I can tell you from personal experience that this takes time. You're not going to, if this isn't your normal pattern of behavior and you go up and you're like, okay, baby, I'm ready to listen to you. They're going to be like, what? What is going on here? You need to give it time and you need to be patient and you need to keep asking questions and then listen and be quiet and no judgment and not create pressure on them. So this is a practice of learning just to be a better listener. But overall, for men, they feel most validated when they are respected and appreciated. So what can you do to create both of those within your home? How can you show that you respect, that you appreciate them? How can you cultivate that with your children as well for their dad? This is important, right? We all have our ways that we feel most validated and seen. And the more aware you can become of what each member of your family needs, the more you're going to create a home that is just such a steady foundation for everybody to grow. And then the final part is within your community spaces. You are a leader. I know that you are. Even if maybe you don't fully see yourself as one, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't. So the question is, what are you bringing to the spaces that you lead, that you operate within? And how can you lean into really helping others feel seen and heard? This can be as simple as inviting a new acquaintance out for a cup of coffee in the places that you're most in, whether that's a mother's group, it's your place of worship, it's your workspace. Where do you see someone who looks like they could really use a friend? They could really use a conversation to unburden their heart. I can tell you right now, there is no lack of people who need to feel seen. And I know sometimes we're like, but what about me? I want to feel heard. And I totally get that. That's why that was the first thing I mentioned, was finding ways for you to be supported so that then you can go out and do this work, because it matters. And we get to do that for other people, right? It's like, what's the point of this human life? Is it just to acquire new belongings, climb up the ladder, right? Have social status? Or is it to make a meaningful difference? So we have to also remember that other people don't have it together any better than we do, no matter how they dress, the car that they drive, the home that they live in. We have to remember that it's what's happening inside of them that needs to come forward. So no matter the externals, keeping in mind, people everywhere are struggling. They just are. Modern life is challenging. And so it often is the people who especially look like they have it together who are the ones that probably need the most support. So just keep that in mind. I believe it's also very important that we model what it looks like to be vulnerable in spaces. Now, this doesn't mean like I'm telling you, you're in a brand new group and you emotionally dump, right? Not saying that, but we can show leadership by saying, hey, I'm really struggling with this right now. Is anybody else feeling this way too? And I know that feels scary to put yourself out like that, but again, people need to see that they're not alone in their struggles. Now, for me, I focus on this in my church, in my friendship groups, in my local community, and then professionally in my two main spaces where I coach, which is private coaching and then expand mentoring membership for moms and business. And in my coaching containers, I try to communicate to my clients that we can coach on anything. I am saying, the proverbial door is open, that even if they come in as like a business coaching client, but they're facing a challenge in their relationship, I want them to feel safe to share it with me, because what we experience in one area of our life impacts every other area. So sometimes it seems like they're unrelated, but for me as a coach, I can see those connections and those patterns so easily. And so I want my people to feel safe to share with me anything that needs sharing. I also proactively create boundaries of safety around conversations so that my clients feel secure and safe to share. And especially within Expand, my group coaching program, everyone in there knows the expectations that our conversations and what happens in that space is private, right? So that they can just show up fully as themselves. They don't have to like posture or try to look a way that they're not. And the reason I really leaned into this in my own group is that I've been in business groups. I've been in like all the masterminds, okay? I've invested a ton in my business growth, my personal growth. And I've been in containers where I did not feel safe to share what was really happening in my life. I felt like I can only share the wins. And consequently, when you're in a space where you feel like you can only share wins, you don't share if you're not winning. And then that creates isolation and disconnection. And I would see that happen in these groups. The women who were struggling, maybe their business wasn't going how they wanted it to go, or they were facing immense personal challenges. If the coach, the leader of that group, didn't create safety for them to share these challenges that were ultimately impacting their business, then they just went silent. They stopped showing up to calls. They stopped posting in the group. And that's a real problem. So again, as leaders, we have to notice what's happening in our spaces and make sure that we're cultivating safety. Now in Expand, I hear over and over how much this community means to these women and that they've never been in a space like it before, where they can be honest and they can be real about the ups and downs of motherhood and business. And that means so much to me, because that means that I'm doing what I set out to do. and I've created the space I dreamed of creating. So I encourage you to think about the spaces you lead, how you can create safety for sharing. And sometimes this is as simple as working on your listening skills and truly hearing another person. So when we're in conversation, do you ever get distracted when another person is talking and you zone in and out? You look at your phone, right? You're looking somewhere else. Part of learning to be an active listener is training your brain to really focus intently on every word the other person is saying and make sure that your environment is distraction free. So this next week, how can you truly create space for others to feel seen? What do your kids need? What does your spouse need? And what do you need most? You do not have to do this journey alone, and you can be part of a community that sees you fully as who you are beyond the roles you fill as mom and wife and business owner, because there is so much more to you than just those titles. If this speaks to you, definitely join us in the next round of Expand Mentoring membership. This is my year-long group coaching program that will support you in growing a profitable business in less time for your happiest, most meaningful family life. But most importantly, you will feel fully seen and supported through all the ups and downs that are inevitable in this human experience. You'll gain a tight-knit community of other women who will truly have your back, and they will cheer you on, and it is the best feeling. Doors are opening for applications in 1 month from the posting of this podcast episode, so you can mark on your calendar April 29th. Now is the time to get on the wait list for Expand, because you will want to be the first to be notified. So here's the deal. When applications open, I am offering special savings and perks for just the first 3 days only. And that's only being offered to the wait list. And then I'm going to open it up to the general public, post about it on social media, all of the spaces. So those special deals are just for my wait list, just as a thank you for joining me. And when you come on the wait list, you're also going to get access to a private playlist with, I think there's probably like maybe 7 or 8 incredibly helpful trainings on business, home, mindset. So much value is just on that private playlist, and I'm giving it away for free when you come on the wait list. So you can join the wait list by heading to happierInmotherhood.com/expand-membership. There will also be a link in the podcast app in which you are listening to this episode. And I just want to remind you too that by joining the wait list, you are not required to join Expand. You can just get on the wait list if there's a part of you that's like, I'm interested, I'm not 100%, I'm interested, that is A-okay. So join the wait list at happierInmotherhood.com/expand-membership and do it right now before you forget, because you know you're going to get busy with home life and it's going to go on the back burner, and then I'm going to send out those deals and you're going to really wish that you had been on the list. Okay, my love, it is time to get out there, make a difference for people, help others feel seen, validated, supported. Start that by doing it first for yourself. And I will see you on next week's episode. We're going to be talking about calm launching strategy. I cannot wait to share with you how I launch in a way that feels just so supportive to me as a mom, because I am so not here for the hustle. Okay, have a beautiful weekend. I will talk to you soon.